Can you briefly talk about copyright and ownership of something like things one would post on a locals chat? Um, okay. Copyright's its own thing, right? So intellectual property, you create a thing and record it in a medium, copyright, you own it. Once you own a copyright, various things happen after that. When you share something on a site like locals or wherever, you might be subjecting the thing you share to a license agreement. For example, on Twitter, if you tweet something out on Twitter, you still own your copyright. You're granting Twitter and all of Twitter users, and arguably under the terms of the license agreement, the entire earth that hasn't been litigated to my knowledge. You're granting them a license to reuse the material, like to retweet it is kind of the idea, but it's not specifically limited to retweeting. So the license agreement's a little broad on Twitter. I don't know what the license agreement on locals is, but I assume you grant locals effectively an unlimited non-exclusive license to host and repost the content in promotional materials or whatever, or in whatever capacity they want. I'm guessing that. What I don't know is how far that license agreement extends to any other users of locals, how it extends off platform and stuff like that. If I had to guess, this conversation is straying towards what if someone is recording a paid locals chat and posting the stuff in there? Can they do that? Whatever is copyright is probably not the answer. Copyright is probably not the answer on this. I know people want it to be an answer, but it's probably not. First of all, the way copyright works is very frustrating. Second of all, there's a tangled web of license agreements. Third of all, when you've got Sargon of Akkad versus Aquila, you've got a precedent, sort of. It's district court, so it's not actual precedent, but you get an understanding of how judges can apply this stuff. And Sargon took Aquila's content. He didn't add any words to it. He just chopped it into segments. Uh, I into segments, not in two segments. I think it was three, but and then he mashed them together. And then I think he laughed at the end, something like that. And then he had a title that was vastly different and critical of her original video on there. And the judge found that that edit, even though he didn't comment in any way, that edit down plus the title of the stream plus the stream being posted on his channel versus her channel, with his channel's audience being notably critical of her, that was sufficient transformation for fair use. To translate that question into someone recording a locals chat and posting it elsewhere, I think you have a lot of parallels to Sargon. You have some issues, right? If it's just a picture that someone posts and you take it and put it somewhere else, you're not editing that picture necessarily, although some have been edited. You're not necessarily doing things that are transformative in the same way that cutting a show from 15 minutes down to 3 minutes is doing. But you might be. Still pictures get different than video. They get different treatment for all sorts of reasons. But ultimately, is there criticism going on of the pictures themselves, of their use? Is that being transformed in some way? I think we're moving to a place where that transformation is much easier to prove than it has been in the past because of the nature of the internet and sharing. And Missy says, don't get me started on fair use rules. They're nuts. Here's the thing with fair use. The really tough part is they're not really rules. They're a set of guidelines that are implemented by a judge. You get the wrong judge or the right judge, and the case goes your way, even if it shouldn't. And then there's a lot of discretion and deference given to those judges by the appeals court that follows. So it's tough to litigate copyright for things that have been shared online and are then taken, because why are they being reposted? Usually for a different and contrary purpose. In this case, that's definitely what we're talking about, right? There's someone who's very critical of certain things posted. So they're going to take them, they're going to comment on them negatively. There's some editing that's done. My stance on all of this shit is there's no benefit in flagging, striking, or brigading anybody. It's just a waste of time. It always has been a waste of time. I don't advocate that people do that. It's not a thing that will be beneficial. It will likely be unsuccessful anyway. And there's also the wonder of the Streisand effect, where attacking something you don't like amplifies it out to a much greater extent than existed. So there are some people who really want me to engage in internet blood sports. That is not my plan. It is not on my list of things to do. I find them to be gay and wholly fucking boring. With that said, I won't be engaging that at all. But yeah, I'm like I said, I have never been one to really engage in copyright stuff. One of my first things I did on the internet was I on YouTube was I got mad and I attempted to copy claim something, and I didn't really understand fair use. I know I'm a lawyer, but I was not a copyright lawyer. I had not really looked into it, and I was properly rejected for that claim, and I have not done it since, because as I learned, I mean, we're talking this is right away, but as I learned later that shit is just gay. That shit is just bullshit. And I'm not a big fan of engaging in it. So I made my mistake and learned my lesson 5 years ago, a little over 5 years ago. And I would never do that again.